My name is Marcus Sullivan. I am 34 years old, and I work as an architect at Morrison & Associates in downtown Chicago. Every morning, I wake up in my one-bedroom apartment on the 14th floor of a building I did not design, in a neighborhood where I pay rent to someone else, and I look out at a skyline filled with structures that belong to other people. I have spent the last decade of my life designing dream homes for clients who can afford them, drawing up blueprints for spaces where families will grow and memories will be made. And yet I have never owned a single square foot of property myself. This morning is Christmas Eve. The sky outside my window is that particular shade of gray that Chicago does so well in winter, heavy with the promise of snow that has not yet decided to fall. My coffee maker gurgles on the kitchen counter, the only sound in an apartment that feels too quiet even when I am in it. I have lived here for 6 years. 6 years of temporary furniture and walls I cannot paint, and a lease that renews every 12 months like a reminder that this is not mine, will never be mine, is just another place I am borrowing until something better comes along. Except nothing better ever comes along. Not for me. I check my phone while the coffee brews. There is a message from my mother, sent at 6:30 this morning, which means she has been awake for hours already, probably coordinating the Christmas Eve dinner with the kind of military precision she brings to everything. The message reads, "Dinner at 5. Do not be late. Your brother is bringing his family and we want everything to be perfect." Everything to be perfect. That is my mother's favorite phrase. It does not mean she wants the day to be enjoyable or meaningful or warm. It means she wants it to look good. To the neighbors, to my brother's wife, to whatever invisible audience she is always performing for. I am 34 years old and I still cannot figure out who she is trying to impress. I pour my coffee into a mug that says "World's Okayest Architect," which a colleague gave me last Christmas as a joke. The joke being that I am actually quite good at what I do. I have won awards. I have been featured in design magazines. Clients request me specifically because they have seen my work and they want that same vision, that same attention to detail, that same ability to turn empty space into something that feels like home. But I cannot seem to create that for myself. The apartment around me is evidence of this failure. The furniture is nice enough, modern pieces from places like West Elm and CB2, but nothing is quite right. Nothing fits. The couch is too big for the living room. The dining table seats 6 even though I have never had more than 2 people over at once. The bedroom feels empty despite the king-size bed, and the second bedroom, which was supposed to be my home office, is mostly just storage for things I do not know what to do with. Boxes from 3 moves ago. A bicycle I bought with good intentions and have ridden maybe twice. A drafting table I never use because I do all my work digitally now. It is the home of someone who is waiting. Waiting for something to happen. Waiting for life to start. Waiting for the moment when everything clicks into place and suddenly the world makes sense. I have been waiting for a very long time. My phone buzzes again. This time it is my brother, Eric. The message says, "Looking forward to tonight. Jesse made that pie you like." I stare at this message for longer than I should. Eric is 2 years younger than me. He is 32. He owns a 4-bedroom house in Naperville with a yard and a 2-car garage and a basement he has converted into a home theater. He has a wife who makes pies and 2 kids who call me Uncle Marcus in that careful way children use when they do not really know someone but have been told they are supposed to love them. He works in pharmaceutical sales and makes about the same amount of money I do, maybe a little less, but somehow he has managed to build this entire life while I am still paying rent on a 1-bedroom apartment and eating dinner alone most nights. I do not understand how this happened. I do not understand how we started in the same place, with the same parents, in the same house, and ended up in such different worlds. Eric got married at 26, bought his house at 28, had his first kid at 29. He followed the script perfectly, hit every milestone right on schedule, and now he has this life that looks exactly like what we were told life should look like. and I have an apartment with furniture that does not fit and a coffee mug that calls me okayist. I text back, "See you at 5. Then I set my phone down and drink my coffee and try not to think about how much I do not want to go to this dinner. But I will go. I always go. Because that is what you do. You show up. You smile. You pretend that everything is fine and that you are happy for your brother, and that it does not bother you at all that your mother introduces him as my successful son, and you as Marcus, he is an architect. As if the career is the only interesting thing about you. As if she cannot think of anything else to say. The snow starts to fall around noon. Big, fat flakes that drift past my window and disappear into the gray city below. I spend the afternoon working on a project for a client in Evanston, a young couple expecting their first child who want to renovate their house to make it more family-friendly. They have a budget of $200,000 and a list of ideas that would cost at least $300,000 to execute, and my job is to figure out how to give them something close to what they want without bankrupting them. This is what I do. I solve problems. I take impossible requests and turn them into workable plans. I look at empty rooms and see potential. I understand structure and form and how to make a space feel larger than it is. I know which walls can come down and which ones have to stay. I know how light moves through a house at different times of day and how to position windows to catch the morning sun. I know all of this. I have studied it. I have practiced it. I have built an entire career on this knowledge. But I cannot figure out how to build a life. At 4:15, I put on a sweater my mother gave me 2 Christmases ago. The kind of sweater that is technically nice but not really my style, too preppy and clean-cut, the kind of thing Eric would wear. I look at myself in the mirror and see someone who is trying too hard. Someone who is wearing a costume of normalcy. Someone who is pretending to be okay. I take off the sweater and put on one of my own. A dark gray pullover that actually fits. My mother will probably make a comment about it. She always makes comments. Little observations that are not quite criticisms but not quite compliments either. Designed to let you know that you have not quite met expectations, but she is graciously choosing not to make a big deal about it. The drive to my parents' house in Oak Park takes 40 minutes. I know this drive by heart. I have been making it my entire adult life. Down Lake Shore Drive with the lake on one side, gray and churning under the winter sky. Then west through neighborhoods that get progressively quieter and more residential until I am pulling up in front of the house where I grew up. A 3-story Victorian with a wraparound porch and a bay window in the front parlor where my mother keeps a Christmas tree that looks like it belongs in a department store display. Eric's SUV is already in the driveway. Of course it is. Eric is always early. Eric is always prepared. Eric has probably already been inside for 30 minutes, helping Mom set the table and chatting with Dad about his sales numbers and being the perfect son who does everything right. I sit in my car for a moment longer than necessary, watching the snow accumulate on my windshield, and I think about my grandfather. My grandfather died 3 years ago. 3 years ago last month, actually. November 17th. I remember the date because it was a Tuesday, and I had just gotten to the office when my mother called to tell me. She did not cry. She just said, "Your grandfather passed away last night. The funeral is on Saturday. Wear something appropriate." Grandpa Joe, my father's father, the only person in my entire family who ever seemed to really see me. When I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, Grandpa Joe used to take me to construction sites. He had worked in construction his whole life, started as a laborer when he was 16 and worked his way up to foreman, and then eventually started his own small contracting company. He was not wealthy, not by any means, but he did okay. He built a decent life for himself. And for some reason, he liked to bring me along when he went to check on his projects. I remember walking through houses that were half-finished, just frames and concrete floors and exposed wiring, and Grandpa Joe would point at the empty spaces and tell me what they were going to become. "That is going to be the kitchen," he would say. "Right there, that is where the island will go. And over there, that is the breakfast nook. You can see how the window will frame the backyard. He talked about houses like they were living things, like they had personalities, like they mattered. And I understood. Even at 7 years old, I understood. I could look at those empty frames and see what he saw. I could imagine the kitchen with the island and the breakfast nook with the window and the family that would live there and the meals they would share and the life that would unfold in those rooms. That is when I knew I wanted to be an architect. Grandpa Joe was the one who encouraged it. When I told my parents I wanted to study architecture in college, my mother said, "That sounds difficult. Are you sure you would not rather do something more practical?" And my father just sort of nodded along like he always did, deferring to her judgment, not offering an opinion of his own. But Grandpa Joe said, "You should do it. You have got the eye for it. You will be good at it." And I am. He came to my college graduation. He came to the opening of my first big project, a community center in Lincoln Park that won a local design award. He came to my apartment, the same apartment I am still living in, when I first moved in 6 years ago, and he looked around at the too big furniture and the empty walls and he said, "This is just the start, Marcus. This is just temporary. You are going to build something great. I know it. I think about that a lot. You are going to build something great." I never got the chance to ask him what he meant, whether he meant a building or a career or a life, whether he was talking about architectural greatness or personal happiness or something else entirely. He died before I could ask. The funeral was small, just family and a few of his old co-workers and friends from the neighborhood. My mother was in charge of everything, of course, organizing the service and the reception and making sure everyone knew where to go and what to do. I remember standing at the cemetery in a suit I had bought specifically for the occasion, watching them lower his casket into the ground, and feeling like I was losing the only person who had ever really believed in me. Eric cried. My mother cried. Even my father, who almost never shows emotion, had tears in his eyes. I did not cry. Not there. Not in front of them. I waited until I got home that night, back to my apartment with the too big furniture, and then I sat on my couch and cried until I could not breathe. And then I stopped, and I went to work the next day, and life went on. That was 3 years ago. I have not thought about Grandpa Joe as much as I probably should since then. Life gets busy. Work piles up. Days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. And suddenly it has been 3 years since he died, and I am still living in the same apartment and still going to the same Christmas dinners and still feeling like I am waiting for something that is never going to come. I get out of my car. The snow is falling harder now, starting to stick to the driveway and the lawn and the roof of my parents' house. The Christmas lights are already on even though it is only 4:50 and not quite dark yet. Multicolored bulbs strung along the porch railing and around the front door and up into the big oak tree in the front yard. My mother always puts up the lights the day after Thanksgiving. She has a schedule for these things. I ring the doorbell. I do not know why I ring the doorbell. I have a key. I grew up here. But something about just walking in feels presumptuous, like I need permission to enter even though this is supposed to be my family home. My father answers the door. He is 62 years old and looks older. His hair has gone completely white in the last few years, and he has developed the slight stoop of someone who spends too much time sitting at a desk. He worked as an accountant for 40 years and retired last spring. Now he mostly just does whatever my mother tells him to do. "Marcus," he says, and he smiles in that vague way he has, the kind of smile that is not really directed at you but more just in your general direction. Come in, come in. Your mother has been asking about you." I step inside. The house smells like pine and cinnamon and something cooking in the oven, probably a ham or a turkey breast, something traditional and festive that my mother has been preparing all day. The Christmas tree in the front parlor is enormous, at least 8 feet tall, decorated with matching ornaments in gold and silver and white. Every branch perfectly spaced, every light position just so. There are presents underneath it, wrapped in expensive-looking paper with elaborate bows, arranged in neat rows like a magazine photo spread. I can hear voices from the kitchen. My mother's crisp, efficient tone giving instructions. Eric's easy laugh. His wife Jessie saying something I cannot quite make out. And then children's voices, high-pitched and excited, probably Eric's kids running around somewhere. My father takes my coat and hangs it in the closet. "How was the drive?" he asks. "Fine," I say. "Not much traffic." "Good, good." This is the extent of our small talk. This is how we communicate. Surface-level questions and surface-level answers. No real substance, no real connection. We could be strangers at a bus stop for all the depth of this conversation. I follow him into the kitchen. My mother is at the stove, wearing an apron over a red cashmere sweater, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup precisely applied. She looks up when I enter and her expression does something complicated. A brief flash of assessment before settling into a practiced smile. "Marcus," she says, "you made it." "I made it," I echo. "That is a different sweater than the one I gave you. Here it is." Less than 30 seconds and we have already arrived at the observation. The gentle correction. The reminder that I have not quite met expectations. "Yeah," I say. "I thought this one was more comfortable." "Well," she says, and that single word contains multitudes. Disappointment, resignation, the subtle implication that I have made the wrong choice, but she is too gracious to say so directly. "Well, you are here. That is what matters." Eric appears from the dining room, carrying a stack of plates. He is wearing a sweater very similar to the one my mother gave me, which means he probably got the same gift and actually wore it. Of course he did. "Marcus," he says, his voice warm and welcoming in a way that feels genuine. Eric has always been good at this, at making people feel comfortable, saying the right thing. "Hey man, glad you are here." We do the awkward side hug thing that men do when they are not quite sure how to express affection. He claps me on the back. I clap him on the back. We separate and smile at each other and pretend this is a normal interaction. "How is work?" he asks. "Busy," I say. "End of the year is always crazy. I bet. Jessie was just saying she saw that article about you in the Tribune. The one about the library project in Wicker Park." "Oh," I say. I am surprised. I did not know anyone had seen that article. It was a small piece, barely 3 paragraphs, in the arts and culture section. "Yeah, that was a fun project. You were doing great things, man," Eric says. And he sounds sincere. He sounds proud, which makes it worse, somehow. It would be easier if he were competitive or jealous or dismissive. But he is not. He is genuinely happy for me. He thinks my career is impressive. He does not understand that success at work means nothing when you go home alone every night to an apartment that does not feel like home. Jessie comes into the kitchen with the kids trailing behind her. She is carrying a pie, the one Eric mentioned in his text, something with a lattice crust dusted with sugar. "Marcus," she says, and she gives me a one-armed hug while balancing the pie. "It is so good to see you." "You too," I say. The kids, Lily and Noah, ages 6 and 4, peek out from behind their mother's legs. They are shy with me. They are always shy with me. I am the uncle they see 3 or 4 times a year, the tall man who works downtown and does not really know how to talk to children, the one who gives them gift cards for their birthdays because he has no idea what kids actually want. "Say hi to Uncle Marcus," Jessie prompts. "Hi," they chorus, barely audible. "Hi," I say back. I try to make my voice warm and friendly, but I can hear how forced it sounds. I am not good at this. I have never been good at this. I do not know how to be the fun uncle or the cool uncle or any kind of uncle other than the awkward one who hovers on the periphery of family gatherings and does not quite know where he fits. My mother starts delegating tasks. Eric is in charge of carving the ham. Jesse is supposed to set out the appetizers. My father is sent to the dining room to make sure the table is set correctly. The kids are given crayons and paper and told to draw Christmas pictures in the den. And me? I am told to stay out of the way. We have everything under control, my mother says. Why do you not go sit in the living room and relax? Which is code for, you are not needed here. We have a system. You will just mess it up. So I go to the living room and sit in the chair by the window, the same chair I have always gravitated toward in this house. And I watch the snow fall and I wait for dinner to be ready. This is my role in this family. The observer, the outsider, the one who shows up but is not really necessary. They could have this dinner without me and nothing would change. The conversation would be the same. The meal would taste the same. The kids would play in the den and Eric would carve the ham and my mother would orchestrate everything with her usual precision and my father would nod and smile and do whatever he was told. I would not be missed. I have known this for a long time, since I was a kid, since before I could articulate it. There was always something about the way I fit into this family that felt off, like I was a puzzle piece from a different set, technically compatible but not quite right. Eric was the easy one, the golden child, the one who did everything correctly and never caused problems and made our parents proud. And I was the one who tried too hard and still came up short, who asked too many questions and wanted too much and never seemed to understand the unspoken rules that everyone else followed instinctively. I remember when I was 9 years old, Eric was 7, and we both made cards for Mother's Day. Mine was elaborate. I spent hours on it. I drew a picture of our family on the front, all 4 of us holding hands in front of our house. And inside I wrote a poem I had made up myself about how much I loved her and appreciated everything she did for us. Eric's card was simple, a stick figure drawing and the words "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," in his messy 7-year-old handwriting. My mother loved Eric's card. She put it on the refrigerator right in the center at eye level where everyone could see it. She said it was perfect. She said it was the most thoughtful thing anyone had ever given her. She put my card in a drawer. When I asked her about it later, she said, "Oh, Marcus, your card was lovely too, but Eric's was so sweet, so genuine. You understand, do not you?" I did not understand. I still do not understand. What did I do wrong? Why was my effort too much and his effort just right? What was the rule I was supposed to follow that I kept missing? I was 9 years old and I thought if I just tried harder, if I just did more, if I just loved her better, then maybe she would see me the way she saw Eric. Maybe she would put my card on the refrigerator. Maybe she would call me sweet and genuine. But it never worked. The harder I tried, the more she seemed to pull away. The more I did, the less she seemed to notice. And Eric just coasted along, doing the bare minimum, and he was the golden child, the successful one, the one who made her proud. I gave up trying around the time I went to college. Or maybe I did not give up. Maybe I just redirected that need for approval somewhere else. Into my work, into my career, into becoming the best architect I could be, racking up awards and publications and impressive projects, building a reputation that would prove I was worth something even if my family did not think so. But here I am, 34 years old, award-winning architect, featured in design magazines, requested by name by wealthy clients. And I am still sitting alone in the living room while my family bustles around in the kitchen, waiting to be called to dinner like a guest in someone else's home. At 5:15, my mother announces that dinner is ready. We all file into the dining room. The table is set with my mother's good china, the stuff she only brings out for holidays, white plates with gold trim and matching serving dishes and cloth napkins folded into elaborate shapes. The ham sits in the center of the table, glazed and studded with cloves, surrounded by dishes of mashed potatoes and green bean casserole and sweet potato souffle and dinner rolls and cranberry sauce. It looks like a spread from a magazine. Everything is perfect. Everything is exactly as it should be. We take our assigned seats. This has been the arrangement for as long as I can remember. My father at the head of the table. My mother at the foot. Eric on one side with Jesse and the kids. And me on the other side, alone, facing them like I am the audience to their perfect family tableau. My father says grace. We bow our heads. He thanks God for the food and the family and the blessings of the past year. He asks for health and happiness in the year to come. He says amen, and we echo it, and then we start passing dishes and filling our plates. The conversation flows around me. Eric talks about his job. Apparently, he exceeded his sales quota for the fourth quarter. Jesse talks about the kids' school. Lily is doing well in first grade. Noah is struggling a bit with his letters, but they are working with him at home. My mother talks about the book club she has joined. They just finished reading something by Kristen Hanna. My father nods and makes agreeable noises and does not contribute much. And me? I am asked exactly one question during the entire meal. My mother turns to me and says, "Marcus, are you seeing anyone?" This is her way of asking if I am dating. Her way of checking if I am any closer to settling down and getting married and giving her more grandchildren and falling in line with the life trajectory she has mapped out for her sons. "No," I say, "I am not." "Oh," she says, and that single syllable is heavy with judgment. "Well, you are getting older. You should think about that. You do not want to end up alone." I look down at my plate. I am 34. I am not exactly over the hill. But in my mother's world, Eric was married at 26. So the fact that I am still single at 34 is a failure. A problem that needs to be solved. A source of disappointment. "I am fine, Mom," I say. "I am just saying. It would be nice if you settled down. Found someone. Started a family." "I am working on it," I lie. Eric changes the subject. Bless him. He starts telling a story about something funny that happened at work, and the conversation moves on, and I am forgotten again. We are almost finished with the meal, moving into that lull where people are full and content and starting to think about dessert, when the doorbell rings. Everyone stops, looks up, exchanges glances. "Who could that be?" my mother says, and she sounds annoyed. This is not part of the plan. This is not scheduled. Someone is disrupting the perfect Christmas Eve dinner. My father gets up to answer the door. We hear him talking to someone in the front hall. A man's voice, older, somewhat hoarse, familiar. And then my father comes back into the dining room, and he looks confused, almost frightened. "Joe," he says, "it is your father." My mother's face goes very still. "What? My father?" My father repeats. "He is here, but that is impossible. Grandpa Joe is dead. He died 3 years ago. I was at his funeral. I watched them lower his casket into the ground. And then a man walks into the dining room, and I realize my father is not talking about Grandpa Joe. He is talking about someone else. A man I have never seen before. An old man, maybe in his 80s, with white hair and a weathered face and sharp blue eyes that sweep across the table and land on me. "Marcus," the old man says, and his voice is rough, like he has not used it much lately. "I finally found you." I stare at him. I have no idea who this is. I look to my parents for explanation, but my mother has gone pale and my father looks like he might faint. "Who are you?" ask. The old man smiles, and it is a sad smile, a smile full of regret and old pain. "My name is Joseph Blake," he says. "I am your grandfather, your real grandfather, and I need to talk to you about the house I bought you 3 years ago." The room goes completely silent. Even the kids stop fidgeting. Everyone is staring at this man, at this stranger who has just walked into our Christmas Eve dinner and claimed to be my grandfather and mentioned a house I know nothing about. I do not understand, I say. My voice sounds distant, like it belongs to someone else. I did not either, Joseph says. Not until last week when I was sorting through my files and found the paperwork. The deed, the mortgage documents, all of it in your name. Marcus Daniel Sullivan. 2-bedroom house on Maple Street in Oak Park. Worth about $300,000. Bought and paid for 3 years ago last month. He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out an envelope. Sets it on the table in front of me. I signed the deed over to you on November 10th, 3 years ago. A week before my son Joe died. He told me you always wanted your own place. That you were the only one who really understood what it meant to build something. So I bought you a house. A starter home. Nothing fancy. But yours. Free and clear. No mortgage. No debt. Just yours. I look at the envelope. I look at my parents. My mother's face is bone white. My father cannot meet my eyes. I never got this, I say. My voice is shaking. I never got any paperwork. I never heard about any house. Joseph's face hardens. He looks at my parents. That is what I figured. See, I had the deed and all the ownership documents sent here. To this address. Certified mail. Signature required. 3 years ago last November. Someone signed for it. He pulls out another piece of paper. A delivery confirmation form. And there, in handwriting I recognize, is a signature. My mother's signature. The silence that follows is so complete I can hear my own heartbeat. I can hear the kids breathing. I can hear the snow hitting the windows. You signed for it, Joseph says to my mother. His voice is not angry, just sad, disappointed. You accepted the delivery, and you never told him. I can explain, my mother says, but her voice is weak, uncertain. She knows there is no good explanation for this. No excuse that will make this okay. Where is it? Ask. My voice does not sound like my own. Where is the house? No one answers. Where is my house? I ask again, louder this time. Eric looks sick. Jessie has her hand over her mouth. My father is staring at his plate like he wishes he could disappear into it. And my mother who always has an answer for everything, who always knows exactly what to say and how to spin every situation to her advantage, says nothing. Joseph pulls out another piece of paper from his envelope. Property record. A tax document. I looked it up, he says. After I found the deed in my files, I looked up the property records. The house on Maple Street. It has been rented out for the last 3 years. To a couple with 2 kids. They pay $1,500 a month. That is $18,000 a year. $54,000 over 3 years. He slides the paper across the table to me. I pick it up with hands that do not feel like mine. The document shows the rental income, the tax payments, the property management fees, and the name of the owner listed on the current records. My mother's name. You took my house, I say. The words feel surreal in my mouth. Impossible. You took the house Grandpa Joe bought for me and you rented it out and you kept the money. We were going to tell you, my mother says. Eventually. We were just waiting for the right time. 3 years, I say. You waited 3 years. While I paid rent every month on an apartment I hate. While I worked myself to the bone trying to save up enough for a down payment on a house of my own. While I felt like a failure for not being able to afford property. You had my house the whole time. It was not like that, she says. Then what was it like? Ask. She does not answer. She cannot answer. Because there is no answer that makes this okay. No explanation that justifies what she did. Eric is the one who speaks. "Jesus, Mom," he says, and he sounds horrified. "Why would you do this?" "We needed the money," my father says quietly. It is the first time he has spoken since Joseph arrived. His voice is barely audible. "We needed the money and we thought we could pay it back before anyone noticed." "Pay it back?" I repeat. "Pay back the house you stole from me?" "We did not steal it," my mother says, and now there is defensiveness in her voice. Anger. "We were holding it for you, managing it, making sure it was properly maintained. We were going to give it to you when you were ready for it." "When I was ready for it," I echo. "I have been ready for it my entire adult life. I have been talking about wanting to buy a house for 10 years. What were you waiting for?" She does not answer, and suddenly I understand. I understand with a clarity that is almost painful. She was never going to give it to me. She was going to keep it. Keep the rental income. Keep the property. And if I ever found out, she would make up some excuse, some justification, some story about how she was protecting me or helping me or doing what was best for me. This is what she does. This is who she is. She takes and she takes and she takes, and she wraps it all up in the language of love and protection and doing what is best for her children. But really it is just about control. About keeping me small. About making sure I never get too far ahead. About ensuring that I always need her, always come back to her, always depend on her. She did not want me to have the house. Not because she needed the money, but because giving me the house would have meant giving me independence. Freedom. The ability to build a life that did not revolve around seeking her approval. And she could not have that. I look at Joseph, this old man I have never met before, this stranger who has more integrity than my own parents. "Why did you come here tonight?" I ask him. "Because I found the papers last week," he says. And I started asking questions. Called the property management company. Called the county recorder's office. Put the pieces together. And I realized that Joe's son, my son, had screwed you over. And I could not let that stand. Joe always talked about you. About Marcus, the architect. Marcus, who understood what it meant to build something. Marcus, who was going to do great things. He wanted you to have that house. It was his dying wish. His voice breaks on the last sentence. This old man, this stranger, is more upset about my grandfather's wish being betrayed than my own parents are. "I am sorry I did not come sooner," Joseph says. "I have been going through Joe's things slowly. He had so much paperwork, so many files. I just got to the folder with your deed last week. As soon as I saw it, as soon as I realized what happened, I knew I had to find you. I knew I had to make this right. I am crying. I realized this suddenly. Tears are running down my face and I have not even noticed. I am crying in front of my family, in front of this stranger, in front of Eric's kids who are staring at me with wide, frightened eyes. I am crying for the house I did not know I had, for the grandfather who loved me enough to buy it, for the parents who betrayed me, for the 3 years I have lost, for the life I could have been living. I am crying because I finally understand that I was right. I have always been right. I do not fit in this family. I never have. And it is not because there is something wrong with me. It is because they never wanted me to fit. They wanted me to stay small and dependent and grateful for whatever scraps of affection they threw my way. But I am not grateful. Not anymore. I stand up, pick up the envelope Joseph gave me. Look at my mother one last time. I am leaving, I say. I am going to go see my house. The house that should have been mine 3 years ago. And then I am going to talk to a lawyer. And then I am going to decide what I want to do about all of this. Marcus, my mother says, and there is pleading in her voice now. Fear. Do not do this. Let us talk about this like adults. Like adults, I repeat. You stole from me for 3 years and you want to talk about it like adults. We can fix this, she says. No, I say. You cannot. You cannot fix what you did. You cannot give me back those 3 years. You cannot undo the betrayal. You cannot make this okay. I turn to Joseph. Will you come with me? To see the house? He nods. Of course. I turn to Eric. He looks devastated, torn between his loyalty to our parents and his horror at what they have done. I am sorry, he says. I did not know. I swear I did not know. I know, I say. This is not about you. Jesse is crying now too. The kids are confused and scared. My father has his head in his hands. My mother is standing at the head of the table, her perfect Christmas Eve dinner ruined, her perfect family facade crumbling, and for the first time in my life, I do not care how she feels. I walk out of the dining room, through the front hall. Joseph follows me. I grab my coat from the closet. He puts on his hat, and we walk out into the snow, leaving the wreckage of Christmas behind us. The house on Maple Street is 10 minutes away. Joseph has the address written down and he directs me as I drive. We do not talk much. I am still processing, still trying to understand what just happened, still trying to fit this new reality into my understanding of my life. My grandfather bought me a house. My real grandfather. The one I never knew I had because my Grandpa Joe was actually my adoptive grandfather. And somehow in all the years of my life, no one ever mentioned this. No one ever told me that my father was adopted, that his biological father was still alive and living 3 hours away in Springfield. I have so many questions, but they can wait. Right now, I just need to see the house. We pull up in front of a small brick bungalow with white trim and a covered front porch. It is a modest house, nothing fancy, exactly the kind of starter home a young professional might buy. There is a wreath on the front door, Christmas lights in the windows, car in the driveway. My house, occupied by strangers, while I have been living in an overpriced apartment and feeling like a failure. The tenants are good people, Joseph says quietly. I called them yesterday after I figured all this out, explained the situation. They have been here 3 years. They have a lease. They thought they were renting from a legitimate landlord. They are victims in this too. I nod. I am not angry at the tenants. They did nothing wrong. I have been paying the property taxes on this place, Joseph continues. Your grandmother and I, we have been covering them since Joe died because we thought you were living here. We thought you knew about it. Every year we sent Christmas cards to this address with notes asking how you were settling in. They kept getting returned to sender, and we just figured you had moved and forgotten to give us your new address. He sounds so sad, so disappointed in a son he barely knows, who turned out to be a liar and a thief. I did not know, I say. I did not know about you. I did not know my father was adopted. I did not know any of this. Joe never told you? No, he never told me. We sit in silence for a moment, looking at the house. My house. The house where I should have been living. The house where I could have been building a life. Having friends over. Hosting Thanksgiving. Painting the walls any color I wanted. Planting a garden in the backyard. Making it mine. All of that was stolen from me. What do you want to do? Joseph asks. I do not know, I say honestly. I need to think. I need to figure out what my options are. I need to talk to a lawyer. I have the original deed, Joseph says. All the documentation, everything you need to prove ownership. And I will testify if it comes to that. I will tell anyone who asks exactly what happened and who did what. Why are you helping me? Ask. You do not even know me. Because Joe loved you, Joseph says simply. And because what they did was wrong. And because I have spent the last 3 years thinking you were living in this house, thinking you had gotten your grandfather's gift, thinking everything had worked out the way it was supposed to, and finding out the truth, finding out that his own son had betrayed his last wish. That hurt. That hurt a lot. I understand. We are both grieving the same man, both missing the same person, both dealing with the same betrayal. Tell me about him, I say. Tell me about Joe. And Joseph does. We sit in my car in front of my house while the snow falls around us, and he tells me about his son, about how they had lost touch when Joe was in his 20s, after a falling out over something Joseph cannot even remember anymore, about how they had reconnected later when Joe was in his 50s, and Joseph was so proud of the man his son had become, the family he had built, the business he had started. He talked about you all the time, Joseph says, about Marcus the architect, about how smart you were, how talented, how you reminded him of himself when he was young, how you had this gift for seeing what things could be instead of what they were. I am crying again. I cannot seem to stop crying today. He wanted you to have this house, Joseph says. He wanted you to have a foundation, a place to build from. He told me, Marcus is going to do great things, but he needs a home first. Everyone needs a home first. I look at the house, the lights in the windows, the wreath on the door, the smoke coming from the chimney. Someone else's home, someone else's Christmas, someone else's life built on what should have been mine. I am going to get it back, I say. I do not care what it takes. I am going to get my house back. Joseph nods. I will help you, whatever you need. We sit there for a while longer, and then we drive back to my apartment, and Joseph comes inside and we drink coffee, and he tells me more stories about Grandpa Joe, and I show him photos of my work, and we talk about architecture and construction and what it means to build something that lasts. And for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I have family. The next morning is Christmas. I wake up in my apartment, and for a moment I think maybe it was all a dream. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. But then I see the envelope on my kitchen counter, the one Joseph gave me, and I know it was real. I call a lawyer, leave a message, explain the situation, ask for a consultation as soon as possible after the holidays. Then I call Eric. He answers on the first ring. Marcus, he says, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I swear I had no idea. I know, I say. I believe you. Mom is freaking out. She is saying you are overreacting, that it is all a misunderstanding, that you are being ungrateful. What do you think? Ask. There is a long pause. Then Eric says, I think what she did was really messed up. I think she had no right. And I think if someone did that to me, I would want to burn the whole thing down. Yeah, I say. Me too. Are you going to press charges? He asks. I do not know yet. I need to talk to a lawyer, figure out my options. But at minimum, I am getting my house back. And I am going to sue for the rental income they collected. That is fair, Eric says. That is more than fair. We talk for a while longer. About the dinner. About the revelation. About Joseph and Grandpa Joe and the family secrets that have been kept from us. Eric is processing his own shock, his own sense of betrayal. He had no idea our father was adopted. He had no idea there was this whole other grandfather out there that we never knew about. Why did they keep it a secret? Eric asks. I have no idea, but I am going to find out. The lawyer calls me back 2 days later. Her name is Sarah Chun, and she specializes in property law and family disputes. I tell her everything. Send her copies of all the documents Joseph gave me. She reviews them and calls me back within an hour. You have a strong case, she says. Very strong. The deed is legitimate. The transfer of ownership was properly recorded. And the fact that your mother signed for the delivery and then concealed the documents from you constitutes fraud. Not to mention the rental income she collected without your knowledge or consent. What are my options? Ask. You can sue for the return of the property, the rental income, and damages. You might also want to consider filing a criminal complaint for fraud and theft. The district attorney might be interested in prosecuting, especially given the amount of money involved. What about the tenants? They did not do anything wrong. They will be fine. They have a lease. They have rights. Once we establish that you are the legal owner, we can either honor their existing lease or work out a buyout agreement. But they are not the issue here. The issue is your parents. How long will this take? Depends on whether they fight it or settle. If they fight, we are looking at months, maybe a year. If they settle, it could be resolved in a few weeks. And what do you think they will do? Sarah is quiet for a moment. Then she says, in my experience, people who commit fraud usually do not want to face the consequences. They will try to negotiate, offer you a settlement, ask you to drop it in exchange for returning the property and some of the money. But the decision is yours. You can accept a settlement or you can push for everything, including criminal charges. I think about this, about my mother sitting across a negotiation table, about my father having to explain to his colleagues and friends what he did, about the family scandal, about the gossip, about everyone knowing what they did. Part of me wants that, wants them to face consequences, wants them to be humiliated the way they humiliated me. But part of me just wants my house back, just wants to move on, just wants to build the life I should have been living 3 years ago. Let us start with the civil suit, I say. We can decide about criminal charges later if we need to. Fair enough. I will draft the complaint and we can file after the new year. The lawsuit is filed on January 5th. My parents received the summons on January 7th. My mother calls me 17 times that day. I do not answer. She leaves voicemails, long, rambling messages that shift between anger and pleading and self-justification. She says I am destroying the family, that I am being selfish, that I am overreacting, that we could have worked this out privately if I had just been willing to talk. I do not call her back. Eric texts me. She is losing her mind. Dad is barely speaking. I do not know what to say to either of them. I text back, you do not have to say anything. This is between me and them. The case moves forward. My parents hire their own lawyer. There are depositions, document requests, back and forth negotiations. Sarah handles all of it. She is relentless. She does not let them weasel out of anything. She makes them account for every dollar of rental income, every property tax payment, every maintenance expense. She forces them to admit what they did. In March, they offer a settlement. They will transfer the property back to me immediately. They will pay me $50,000, which is the rental income minus the expenses they claim they incurred. They will issue a formal apology, and I will drop the lawsuit and agree not to pursue criminal charges. It is a decent offer, Sarah says. You would get the house back. You would get most of the money. You would avoid a trial. But it is your decision. I think about it for a long time. I think about sitting in a courtroom, having all of this aired in public, testifying about my childhood, about feeling excluded, about the Mother's Day card that went in the drawer, about being the son who was never quite good enough. I think about what I want out of this, what I really want. I want my house. I want to move forward. I want to build the life I should have been living. I do not want to spend the next year mired in litigation and bitterness and anger. I will accept the settlement, I tell Sarah. With one addition, the apology needs to be in writing, and they need to acknowledge specifically what they did. Not some vague "we are sorry for any misunderstanding" bullshit. They need to admit they took the house, concealed the documents, and collected rental income without my knowledge or consent. Sarah smiles. I can make that happen. The settlement is finalized in April. The property is transferred back into my name. The tenants are bought out with a generous relocation payment. The house is mine, free and clear. No mortgage, no debt, just mine. My parents send the apology letter. It is brief, formal, exactly what I asked for. It admits fault, acknowledges wrongdoing, offers no excuses. I read it once and then I put it in a file and I never look at it again. In May, I move into the house on Maple Street. It is strange at first, walking through rooms that should have been mine 3 years ago, seeing the marks on the walls where the previous tenants hung their pictures, smelling their presence in the curtains and the carpets. This place has been someone else's home, and now I am supposed to make it mine. But I do. Slowly, room by room, I paint the walls, replace the carpets, buy new furniture that actually fits, hang my own pictures, set up my home office in the second bedroom, the one I actually use, with a proper drafting table and good light and space to think. And I invite Joseph over for dinner. He comes with his wife, Helen, my grandmother, who I am just getting to know. They bring wine and a houseplant and stories about Grandpa Joe that make me laugh and cry at the same time. He would have loved this, Joseph says, looking around at the renovations I have made. He would have loved seeing you in this house, making it yours. I wish he could see it, I say. Maybe he can, Helen says quietly. Maybe he knows. We have dinner in my new dining room, at a table I bought specifically because it seats 6 and I am planning to actually have people over now. We talk about Joe and about construction and about what it means to build something that lasts. And I realize that this is what family should feel like. This easy conversation, this acceptance, this sense of belonging. Not the performance, not the perfection, not the constant striving for approval that never comes. Just this. Just being seen, just being valued for who you are, not who you are supposed to be. Eric comes over a few weeks later with Jesse and the kids. They bring pizza and we eat on the floor in the living room because I have not bought a coffee table yet. The kids run around exploring the house and the backyard. Jesse tells me I have done a wonderful job with the renovations. Eric helps me hang a shelf in the garage. How are Mom and Dad? Ask. It is the first time I have mentioned them in months. Eric is quiet for a moment. Then he says, not great. They are dealing with a lot of fallout. Some of their friends found out what happened. There has been gossip. Mom is having a hard time with it. Dad is just kind of shut down. Do you talk to them? Ask. Yeah, they are still my parents. But it is different now. I see them differently. And I am not going to pretend what they did was okay just to keep the peace. That is fair, I say. Are you ever going to talk to them? Eric asks. I do not know, I say honestly. Maybe someday, but not now. Not anytime soon. He nods, understands, does not push. And we hang the shelf and we eat pizza and we watch the kids play in the backyard and it feels normal. Feels good. Feels like family. Months pass. Summer turns to fall. I spend my days at work designing buildings for other people and my evenings in my own house. The house my grandfather bought for me. The house I almost lost. The house I fought to get back. I have barbecues with neighbors. I host dinner parties. I join a book club at the local library. I adopt a dog from the shelter. A rescue mutt named Charlie who sleeps at the foot of my bed and greets me at the door every evening when I come home from work. I build a life. The life I always wanted. The life I should have been living all along. And then one day in November, 3 years and a week after Grandpa Joe died, I am standing in my backyard, watching the leaves fall from the trees, and I realize I am happy, actually happy, not pretending, not performing, not waiting for approval or permission or validation from anyone else. Just happy. My phone rings. It is my mother. I have not spoken to her since the settlement was finalized. I stare at the screen for a long moment, debating whether to answer. Finally, I do. "Hello," I say. "Marcus." Her voice is small, uncertain, nothing like the confident, authoritative tone I grew up with. "I was wondering if we could talk." "We are talking," I say. "I mean in person. Maybe we could meet for coffee, or I could come to you, to the house." I look back at my house, the one she tried to steal from me, the one I fought to get back. "I do not think I am ready for that," I say. "Marcus, please. I know I made mistakes. I know what we did was wrong. But I am your mother. We are family. We should not be estranged like this." "You are right," I say. "You are my mother. But that does not give you the right to betray me. That does not mean I owe you forgiveness just because we share DNA." "I am sorry," she says. And she sounds like she means it, but I have heard her apologize before. I have heard her say she is sorry and then turn around and do the exact same thing again, because the apology was never really about remorse. It was about smoothing things over, getting back to normal, making the uncomfortable feelings go away. "I appreciate the apology," I say, "but I am still not ready to see you." "When will you be ready?" "I do not know. Maybe never. Maybe someday. I cannot give you a timeline." There is a long silence. Then she says, "I miss you." And this, more than anything else she has said, surprises me, because it sounds true. She actually misses me, not the idea of me, not the role I played in her perfect family picture, but me, the person, the son she never really seemed to see. "I miss you too," I say, and I am surprised to find that it is true. Not the mother she actually is, but the mother she could have been, the mother I always wanted her to be. But missing someone is not enough. You hurt me, you betrayed me, and I need time to figure out if I can forgive that. "Okay," she says quietly. "Okay, I understand." We say goodbye, hang up, and I stand in my backyard with Charlie at my feet, watching the leaves fall, and I feel something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but something like peace, like acceptance, like the understanding that I do not need her approval anymore. I do not need her to see me or validate me or tell me I am good enough. I know I am good enough. I have built a life that proves it. This house, this yard, this dog, these neighbors, these friends, this happiness. I did this, me, without her help, without her permission, without her. And maybe that is what she was afraid of all along. Not that I would fail, but that I would succeed without her. That I would build something great and she would have no part in it. That I would find happiness somewhere outside her orbit and realize I never needed her as much as she needed me to need her. Maybe that is why she took the house. Not because she needed the money, but because giving me the house would have meant giving me independence. And she could not have that. She needed me to stay small, to stay dependent, to keep coming back to her, seeking approval, trying to earn love. But I do not need that anymore. I do not need her anymore. And maybe someday when she understands that, when she accepts that, when she stops trying to control the narrative and just lets me be who I am without conditions or expectations or demands, maybe then we can have a relationship. A real one, based on mutual respect and acceptance and genuine love. But that day is not today, and it might never come. And I am okay with that, because I have a house, I have a life, I have people who love me for who I am, not for who they want me to be. I have a grandfather I never knew I had, who bought me dinner once a month and tells me stories about his son. My grandfather, the one who saw something in me that my own parents could not see. I have a brother who stood by me when it mattered, who chose what was right over what was easy, who has become more of a family to me in the last year than our parents have been in 34 years. I have a home, not just a house, but a home, place that is mine, place where I belong, a place I do not have to perform or pretend or try to be anyone other than exactly who I am. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to, it is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters even if they tried to erase it.